Good evening. This is the regular meeting of the Arts and Culture Commission. Today is Thursday, October 20th, 2022. Seeing a quorum, this meeting is officially called to order. Madam Recording Secretary, please take roll call.
Commissioner McNair,
Here.
Commissioner Hernandez.
Here.
Commissioner Russell,
Here.
Commissioner Wu,
Here.
Commissioner Gallegos,
Here.
Commissioner Katz, Commissioner Fernandez.
Here.
Thank you. We have quorum. We can proceed.
Thank you. So please rise and join with me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. At this time, members of the public may address the Arts and Culture Commission regarding any non-agenda items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the committee. No action may be taken on non-agenda items unless authorized by law. Please note that you have 3 minutes to speak, and our Madam Recording Secretary will be our timekeeper. Does the public have any comments they wish to share with the commission?
I don't have anyone in the waiting room.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to our consent calendar. This is the time for the commission to consider matters under the consent calendar, items 1 through 4. Do I have a motion to consider items 1 through 4?
Motion.
I'm sorry, was that which commissioner was that? Oh, thank you, Commissioner Gallegos. Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Commissioner Russell. Is there any discussion about items 1 through 4? All right, so this motion is to approve the minutes. So is there, Madam Recording Secretary, will you please take a vote?
Commissioner McNair,
Yes.
Commissioner Hernandez,
Yes.
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Commissioner Wu,
Yes.
Commissioner Gallegos,
Yes.
Commissioner Fernandez.
Yes.
Thank you. We pass.
Thank you, Madam Recording Secretary. All right, we are so very excited to introduce a special guest tonight, our new Executive Director, Michael Garcia. We'd like to give you the floor to introduce yourself and tell us your role, and thank you for supporting the Arts and Culture Commission.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be a part of the City of Santa Ana. It is near the end of week 4, but I actually have a long history with the city. I started back in 1993 while I was working on my master's degree. I started in economic development and actually worked in economic development for 2 years. During that time frame, I met my wife, Rosa Garcia, who was an Arts and Culture Commissioner from 2016 to 2020. We got married not long after that, and I left the city in 98. Went to a consulting firm in Santa Ana that does economic development work and real estate work for cities throughout the state, and so had a great career. And then back in 2006, I left and started my own consulting firm with some partners, and I've been up in Los Angeles since 2006. For almost every day of my work life. And so I was very happy when I heard about this opportunity here. I was most recently Community Development Director in City of Norwalk and City of Pico Rivera. And so having a 4-mile drive from South Santa Ana into the Civic Center has been a blessing. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing how I can contribute for the work that Nyap Jam, or you all refer to her as Tram. I figured out how to pronounce her name properly in Vietnamese. I hope I didn't embarrass you, Tram. Looking forward to how I can support the Arts and Culture Commission. I worked for 3 years from 95 to 98 in personnel, and I hired our first arts and culture manager for Parks and Recreation. And I used to love giving tours of the Grand Central Market in the Artists District, and just very interested in how I can contribute to the city. And my background and my passion really is more on the real estate development side, although I do play 3 musical instruments. So, but I'm not at all artistic like my daughter. My daughter is extremely talented when it comes to graphic arts and all kinds of painting, drawing, you name it. So, so my whole family, we're very much involved in the arts, and either performance art, music, drawing, you name it. So happy to be here, and happy to take any questions you may have of me, and anything else about my background that you'd like to know. I was on city council. I forgot to say I was on city council from 2002 to 2006. It was fun. It was arduous. I'm not, even though I was an elected official, I wouldn't call myself political. But I enjoy being on the administrative side. So I'm happy to be here. Sorry for the long intro, but I hope that gave you a more complete picture of who I am. So.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mike. We appreciate that. And please give our regards to Rosa and our gratitude as being part of the original Arts and Culture Commission when it first started. We appreciate the path that she's paved for the rest of us to be here. And I love that it's come full circle for you to come back and support us as well. So opening it up to any of the commission, are there any questions for our new executive director?
No questions, but I just want to say
Commissioner
welcome.
Russell has a question.
Yes. Mike, I was wondering if you could share, what are your top 3 things that you're interested in working toward or trying to accomplish maybe in your first year?
Great. I'm actually right now working on property acquisitions. In fact, at the beginning of this meeting, I was typing a letter to an interested party. We're trying to do park expansions in different portions of the city. And because I worked in real estate for so many years, doing real estate work for cities, not doing residential sales, I'm already going on quite a few property acquisitions. And so I would like to see how I can contribute to the city with regard to expansion of park acquisition areas. We're looking at Campesino Park on 5th. There's a property that's for sale over there. My grandfather was born right near there back in 1916, and his brother owned Ferman's Auto Body dismantling yard right there. So the Alarcon side of my family has a long history, over 100 years in Santa Ana and Westminster. So I'm real excited to see what I can do on that end. I do tend to focus more on the economic development side as well. I've been meeting with Travel Santa Ana, and I'm meeting with the Downtown Santa Ana Business Group tomorrow, as well as Downtown Inc. next week. And then getting to learn more and more about all our great housing programs here in our housing authority. Housing and homelessness are things that are always going to be of concern to me. I want to make sure that there are affordable housing opportunities. And so Judson Brown, our housing authority manager, is going to get a lot of my attention probably in the first year. Outside of the work that I will be doing, we used to have a real estate division in community development. And we basically dismantled that. I think it was in 95. And so I'm looking to how I can reinstitute that. Our real estate activities that we handle here at the city are more focused on public improvement projects, so sewers and waters and street widenings. And so my friends in Parks and Recreation were happy that I was here because they know I like to see a lot of park projects. But on that end, I'd love to see how I can do stuff for the Arts District area. If there's a way to create some additional paseos or create a better traffic flow near the Arts District. I know that there's a big project coming in at being proposed at 3rd and Broadway, between Broadway and essentially Main on the east. And so I'm always going to be looking at how I can make good connections to our Arts District. So.
Fantastic.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions for you. How do you see the arts and culture as an economic engine in the city of Santa Ana? And also perhaps you could share what your purview is for those folks in the audience or anybody who may watch this. You know, what does the executive director oversee? Because I hear you touching on a lot of things, but we view the arts and culture as an economic engine and have worked with Travel Santa Ana and supported in the initiatives because it's been identified that the arts and culture are a big attractionary point for Santa Ana. So I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I've always been interested in seeing how there's a way to capture activity whenever we open up the Arts District to bring in individuals on. I imagine you guys are still, the Arts District is still doing the first Saturday. I think it's the first Saturday of every month. Is that right, Tram? Where they do tours. I remember leading tours of the UCI Alumni Association back in '99, I think, when these first started. Maybe it was in the early 2000s. And so I'm always interested in how we can capture some of that foot traffic when it's in the area. But I don't want to say that I'm trying to monetize art. I look at it differently. I'm just glad that it gets people interested in the downtown and they come and they visit. And I'm not saying that when they're in town, I want to get every dollar we can out of them when they're visiting for that first Saturday a month, or they're coming over to the Yost Theater. I want them to just feel like it's an inviting area. It's a place that they're not going to find elsewhere in the county of Orange. It's unique. You know, I used to, and God rest his soul, I used to I was at odds with our old city manager, Dave Ream, about how we were trying to develop the city. I used to say, we're not Irvine, and I don't want us to be Irvine. We're Santa Ana. Let's be proud of it. Let's, and leaders like Tom Lutz and others, Don Cribb, I think they felt the same way as I did, that we didn't want it to be a sanitized version of an arts district, that let it develop on its own, essentially, let it develop organically. And that would be enough to get interest from outsiders to want to spend some dollars here. So, and come back and visit and see other restaurants and areas of the downtown and the city that maybe they had never encountered before. As director of the Community Development Agency, we have the Economic Development Division. We've got our Housing Authority and Housing Division. So the Housing Division includes not only Section 8, but includes CDBG, Cal Home, and home funds that come in from the federal government for housing rehabilitation. And then, of course, it's got our homeless group that helps working with the interdepartmental team to try to figure out how we can help those that are unhoused within our city. I'm adding essentially a real estate function back to the department. And luckily, I still have a lot of friends here within the city so that we can see how we can put our imprint on other departments to make them more business friendly, possibly speeding up their permit processing. I want to bring back a development facilitation team to the city. We used to have what was called the red permits team. So we would get together with groups from fire, planning, police department, building and code, and come and meet with developers, talk about all the little areas where they may experience some issues with regard to development. I want to get that going again. We just had one of our first meetings a little bit ago to talk about the project down in the south end of town that the Related Companies is trying to build, the 3,700 units of housing with 250 units of hotel rooms. So we got together as a group with many different members from different departments to talk about that. And I want to keep that going. I think as the director of community development, I want to be here to facilitate development and get the cash registers ringing, but basically keep the city out to a certain degree, help facilitate, but not make any business owner feel that we're driving the situation, that they let them have their entrepreneurial spirit and get things going within our city so that we get good sales tax revenue and lots of visits from people outside of the city.
I wanted to say something, if I may, a comment and maybe a question.
Okay.
Just wanted to touch on, I know you mentioned not monetizing art. So I've been in Santa Ana for maybe 15 years. I probably had one of the first recording studios out here. I've seen how the city is driving the arts, and not just like a paint on walls, which I know that's been kind of the traditional way to look at cultural preservation and art, but digital art and also music, which I think is a huge driver of the city, and it's become kind of a small music hub beyond a lot of other technical developments. So I do feel that we need to create opportunities for artists to monetize this art, because I think that's the important thing for having artists here and driving people to come see the things that we do here. So I wanted to just kind of have a question, see if maybe you had some ideas, maybe off the top of your head that you might have been thinking already for providing adequate funding to the Arts and Culture Commission so that we can, explore things outside of, what we're doing now, and to just further foster that. The last meeting we talked about one thing that I wanted to kind of be a proponent of, which was digital art and blockchain technologies, because the literal definition of blockchain technologies is economic driver for art. So I think that kind of exploring creative funding for our department outside of the infrastructure development, and also providing pathways for artists to continue to monetize within the city, so we can continue to kind of lead this kind of a cultural revolution that is kind of happening in between the culture that moves between here, Los Angeles, and South County. I think we're at this really nice hub of creativity. So I wanted to see if you had some maybe creative ideas off the top of your head to kind of get us going on to start to secure some funding, because I think that's gonna I saw in our master plan that's something that we need to touch about. So I wanted to see if maybe you had something at the top of your head.
For me, I'm looking at ways that I can bring in grant writers, and not within our staff, but to bring in different groups that have relationships throughout the state. I used to work very, very closely with a few different groups. And this is when I was on city council. I was very focused on what we could do to bring more money into the city for parks. And they were so good at identifying grant applications. And at the time, I was working very closely with Gerardo Moet, our old Parks and Rec director, and Ron Ono, and we would submit applications to the state for various different funding opportunities. And I guarantee there are funds out there that can help us in either creating spaces or places within our city for having areas for artists, for not just like you're saying for murals, but for performance art in public spaces. I'm interested in seeing. I've been working in small cities the last 7 years, but I saw how bigger cities. When I used to do a lot of work with the city of San Diego, city of LA as a consultant. They had very good big coffers that they could put money towards things that could help with art development. I don't know that we've got those type of funds here. I haven't really got my hands around our general fund dollars. So what type of grant opportunities are out there? That's what I'm interested in exploring as a director. But then I'm serious about it. I'd like it to be kind of something like you sound like you have a lot of experience in that area. How can we as a city support different ideas? I'm not saying we're always going to agree on everything that gets presented to us, but I want to have an open mind to, how we can keep things moving. I was concerned. I remember we pumped a lot of money from the redevelopment agency into the arts district between 3rd and 1st, Broadway over to Main. And I remember at the time it was stalling in the late 90s, and it seemed to take off in the early 2000s. There was an influx of some private development into the area. A lot of it mainly from Mike Hara, a developer in town. But it really did kickstart things. We had put a lot of money as a city from our redevelopment agency into the downtown to clean up the area, acquire some properties. And I'd love to see how we can keep things going by bringing in funding from the state, county, state, even federal dollars. I'm sure there's money out there, and how do we get it to work here in our cities? So I hope that helps, and it provided some answers. When you talk about the non-fungible, I'm still trying to get my hands around that.
The only reason I mentioned it is because I was reviewing the document. I won't go into too much because I know we have our special place for that, but there is DAOs, there's funds that are investing a lot, and I think that if we put our mind into that and be supportive of those technologies, that these DAOs, these groups, these funds, these your new age investors will come and support us, especially because a lot of that infrastructure requires proof of concept in theory, and all of that's theory, right? So if we place ourselves efficiently, I think we could attract that, and I would love to be a part of that if it's something that you think I might be able to add to when you're having those conversations.
Okay. Excellent.
I'd like to point out too, thank you for bringing that up, Commissioner Fernandez, because the original Arts and Culture Master Plan, when it was created for 10 years, was only funded for 5. So we have a lot of initiatives and a beautiful plan that we want to keep alive and growing, but we don't have sustainable funding for the arts. So we're working on some initiatives right now, including getting surveys so we can collect data of the economic impact of the arts and culture in Santa Ana, so that we can use it to write grants, solicit sustainable funding from the city and other things to keep the arts and culture alive and thriving. Are there any other questions for Mr. Garcia? Okay, hearing none. Thank you so much for being here with us. We really appreciate it. We're really excited of your vision, and looking forward to working with you to help support, to get your support and expand on those ideas. So thank you again for being here.
Absolutely.
All right, moving on, we have a work study session. We have one item in this section. Please note that there will be no motion or action taken on this item. So this item is a discussion of the Arts and Culture Master Plan that we were just talking about. And that's led by Vice Chair Vu, who has been working on coming up with some recommendations, and so we'd like you to report out if you would, please.
Yes, I have that ready. Let me make sure I can share my screen. All right, does everyone see this presentation?
Yes.
Awesome. I'm going to go through this fairly quickly because I don't necessarily want to spend too much time on the background, but I do want to give a little bit of background in case anyone in this meeting, whether that's in the audience or otherwise, isn't fully familiar with the Arts and Culture Master Plan. So the document itself is officially called the Community Arts and Cultural Master Plan, and it was written in 2016. And the text actually says that it's defined as not as a city arts and culture master plan, but specifically as a community arts and cultural master plan. And I really wanted to point this out because in order for us to be able to achieve all of the goals set out in this master plan, we really need a wide breadth of collaboration and cooperation from different entities across the city, whether this is the city itself, grassroots organizations, local artists, local businesses, various different kinds of agencies to collaborate to fulfill this for our city. It was written 2 years after the formation of the Arts and Culture Commission. And like Chair McNair said earlier, it is a 10-year plan. We're currently in year 6. And looking at the budget, at the time of writing, they were the Arts and Culture Commission in the plan says that they were receiving approximately $175,000 a year from the general fund. And they acknowledged even then that it may not increase significantly in the early period of plan implementation. What they did not foresee is that we would have zero funds at all. Our 2022 to 2023 fiscal year budget includes $0 from the general fund, $50,000 allocated specifically for mural restoration, and another $50,000 allocated specifically for the graffiti arts program. And so because of this, we don't have funding to start any initiatives that would require money. So the recommendations I'm going to be putting in front of you all today are ones I think that we can get started with without having any funds for this year at least. There are the goals for the master plan were developed into 8 different categories. They're cultural equity, access and inclusion, infrastructure for the arts, the creative workforce, community-wide access and engagement, youth arts programs and education, spaces and places, placekeeping and placemaking, and public art. And I'm just going to go really quickly through them. I'm not going to go through all the initiatives because that would take us too much time. But again, just a little refresher for anyone who hasn't looked at it in a bit. So the first one, the goal is specifically to foster equity, inclusion, and access in the arts and cultural development. And then there are 2 recommendations, each of which I believe has 3 initiatives under it. I did not have room for the initiatives, so I'll just leave the recommendations on the screen for a bit for you all to review. The second theme is infrastructure for the arts, which the goal for which is to work collectively towards a robust infrastructure for the arts in Santa Ana, inclusive of city policy, staffing, and sustained funding. This goal actually only has 4 recommendations. It does not have any individual initiatives underneath it. So again, I'll just give you all about 30 seconds or so to read the 4 recommendations. The third one is creative workforce. Create the conditions where artists and creatives thrive professionally, and arts and cultural organizations have the resources required for sustained success. And the key word here being sustained success, not just short-term, not just temporary. Fourth one, community-wide access and engagement. The goal is to support and expand arts and cultural programming to engage all populations throughout the community. And this does say all, not just most. We want to be as inclusive as we can. There are 3 recommendations here. Fifth one is youth arts programs and education, specifically targeting and supporting existing and create new opportunities for youth to engage in artistic and creative activities and career pathways. Specifically, the career pathways being a really important thing to foster within the city as well. 3 recommendations. Next one is spaces and places. Identify community spaces for artistic and creative collaborations and create a roadmap for new cultural facility development through city and organizational partnerships. And this is really in line with what Mike Garcia was sharing earlier about his goals and plans. So there's 3 recommendations on this slide. The penultimate one, placekeeping, placemaking, preserve Santa Ana's unique heritage while creating arts and cultural opportunities through new placemaking initiatives. And then the very last one, sorry, there's a typo on this one. It was supposed to be public art. Public art, create visible and interactive arts opportunities for engagement through public art. And there's only one recommendation, which is to develop a public art program. Now having the context of all 8 themes and all of the recommendations in this master plan, I wanted to then present to you my recommendations for the goals that I think we should focus on. Now, before I show them, I identified 3 goals as something that is realistic for us to be able to complete throughout this fiscal year as a commission that meets only once a month with no funding. So the recommendations I have are 2 initiatives and 1 recommendation. The first initiative is 1.2.3, which is to develop and implement a means for evaluating efforts and outcomes to measure success and identify areas for improvement. This is specifically under the cultural equity and access. So I think it is a good idea for us to be able to develop a citywide, commission-wide means to measure whether or not we are eliminating barriers to access art and cultural programs within the city. Because it's one thing to say that we are striving to eliminate barriers. It's another thing to have a measurable metric to say, yes, we have begun to eliminate, or no, we have not, and have some sort of success comparison. My second recommendation is for us to focus on exploring long-term funding options for arts and cultural investments and to ensure implementation of this arts and cultural plan. Until we get sustainable long-term funding, I think this is a recommendation that every year the Arts and Culture Commission should continue to work on in various different ways, creative ways, bringing in different kinds of income, whether that's through grant opportunities, trying to get money from the general fund, trying to get programs that we can actually allocate funds through to the community through various different things. And finally, my last recommendation is initiative 8.1.3 under the public art. developing a city public art master plan and developing a comprehensive inventory of the city's public art and murals. And the reason I want us to focus on this right now is because if we already have $50,000 allocated to mural restoration this year, then it makes sense for us to pair that with a way to categorize, a way to keep inventory of all the public art we have in our city, not only for internal reasons, but also to publicize where these places of public art are, to have it so that all of our arts and culture commissioners actually know and can visit and have seen and experienced this public art themselves. These are my recommendations, and at this point, I would like us to discuss what other initiatives or recommendations for the next year should we focus on instead. And I want to make a recommendation also that we pick no more than 5.
Are there any thoughts, feedback from any of the commissioners?
I do have a thought. I know we've talked about it before, but I think it's let me see what page is it, because I was looking at different pages. Give me 1 second. 17. So it is under the infrastructure for the arts. There is discussion on a one-stop shop access portal, and I know that it's been discussed here before, but having an artist roster for the city of Santa Ana, I think it's super important. Somewhere where, and I think it was discussed before, business owners, outside folks, anybody and everybody can have and I think it goes beyond just artists. I think it's a one-stop shop sort of portal where you can find things about the arts and the artists in Santa Ana. I think that would help drive the artists within Santa Ana and that are contributing to the arts and culture development. So I think that that's something that with small funding, it could be an easy lift. I know I talked to Tram about it, about, putting up websites and things like that. Those things are pretty simple from an infrastructure and design perspective. And then also there was very interesting comment as well on the infrastructure for the arts. I'm looking at the exact master plan, and I'm looking at page 17, and page 17 talks about utilization of certain spaces for creative use, and it talks about the train station, and I think that is a kind of a hidden gem. Nobody's doing anything there. Nothing has happened there. That could be a creative space that could be utilized somehow for something, maybe some fundraising. I'm not sure, but I thought that was a very creative idea to look at spaces within Santa Ana that are being underutilized that could be used for something, while keeping in mind all of our goals, which is obviously fundraising and bringing value to artists. So those are 2 things that stood out to me.
Thank you.
Then,
Oh,
go
go ahead. I just wanted to clarify. Thank you for those recommendations. Are you suggesting then that we include, because Vice Chair Vu said they brought forward 3 recommendations up to 5. So are you recommending that we put the artist registry as one of those initiatives?
I'm not sure if the funding would allow for it. I don't know, but I think that it could be. It doesn't seem like it's a terrible lift. But I think I was responding more or less to her comment on maybe upcoming or future things that we can keep in our next agenda, or maybe for next year. I think that as a goal, maybe having this done by next year should be something that would be good, because if we can complete something that needs, I don't know, $1,000 to get done, that means that we've raised a little bit of money, and everything along the way would be good. So I think that that's like an easy lift for next year without having to convolute it too much into this year, given the time.
And first of all, thank you, Vice Chair Vu, because that was a very brilliant, beautiful overlay. It simplified it, helped it be very understandable. I appreciate your strategic thinking about approaching from the lens of we don't have any sustainable funding right now, what the limited pockets are already prescribed. So your recommendations seem very reasonable. And I appreciate Commissioner Fernandez contributing to the long-term thinking. Are there any other comments from the commission about those three recommendations for this year?
I do. I first of all, yes, thank you for doing that work. It's fantastic. It was clear, it's very concise, and I think those are wonderful places to start off, especially when we don't have, unfortunately, we have zero funding really for anything else, which is quite, terrible. And I think what I found is when myself and Commissioner Russell were looking at different options for registry, the number one thing I think that was kind of everywhere was it costs money. And it didn't matter which way you kind of did it. You can find cheaper options, more expensive options, whatever it was. But, to host a domain, to host whatever, it costs money. And in my eyes, I thought, well, $400 to hold like a round of event to hold like a round to kind of see, okay, these artists can come in, we can kind of view them and say, this is kind of what we're looking for in terms of, there needs to be some kind of qualifying system. Even that amount, the fact that we have zero is just, it's crazy to me. But I think to Wizzo's point, it is something to be put on, in future, if we can somehow develop, I don't know, some kind of events that do raise money. I don't know what happens in terms of like legalities. Like even if the commission comes up with like, I don't know, an event that people are willing to kind of volunteer in and I don't know, chip in a certain type of service that say, hey, let's help raise funds for the Arts and Culture Commission. I don't know what it would mean if we could potentially use that money or if it would just kind of throw in a whole bunch of legal questions. So, but yeah, I think it's a good place to start with zero money.
Go ahead, Commissioner Fernandez.
To speak to Commissioner Gallegos, to kind of expand on what he said, can we maybe discuss that? Like, what does the optics look like for the Arts and Culture Commission to be like, hey, well, we don't have a budget, let's go find one, and we create some sort of thing that raises capital? Like, can we do that? Because if we can, I have a couple of ideas that might actually raise some capital. That could we raise money?
I think we have to have a nonprofit arm in order to raise money. I don't think as a city we can just accept money as donations even.
Gotcha.
And we were kind of discussing that early on too, like years ago. But hopefully maybe Ryan, if you can help clarify that, or even Mike, if you're familiar with that kind of process.
I'll let Ryan speak first, but I did want to talk about an effort after Ryan, if he has any comments about something that we're exploring as a city administration. So.
No, but there are certain regulations, requirements that we have to go through in order to kind of generate funds that way through donations, if you will. It's not impossible. It can be done. There's just certain steps that need to be taken to do that I don't think are in place as of right now. But it's not something that it is prohibited. It just needs to be done the right way.
And so what I wanted to comment on is that cities more often or more frequently are comfortable accepting properties as donations. Our Prentice Park or the Santa Ana Zoo was donated, and they're typically include some sort of a covenant on the property I think we have to have 50 monkeys at all times at the Santa Ana Zoo, or the descendants of the Prentice family get to claw back that property. The property up at Memory Lane, just immediately east of or west of the Santa Ana River bike trail and the Santa Ana River. So basically where City Drive comes, you're heading south into Santa Ana and Garden Grove area. Straight ahead is a property that was donated or provided to the city by the county. And it had a covenant that it had to be for affordable housing. But something we are exploring as a city administration is the idea of creating a community foundation that would function like a 501c3. It's funny that we're talking about this because I was responding right now to our assistant city manager about different benefits for raising capital and doing any other additional fundraising. The first thing I put was for arts. So I was in the process of responding to our assistant city manager, Steve Mendoza, and it's something that other cities have explored and have done successfully. And if we could go that route, if it is the pleasure of the city council to go that route, I think it could be a great vehicle for raising money for different activities that the city wants to take on, and creates that little 501c3 entity. That it'll have to have a board, it'll have to have a little bit of an oversight, but I imagine it would have a board. I think all 501c3s do have a committee requirement and functions. So yeah, just wanted to give that little update there. So
Go ahead, Mr. Gallegos. Yeah.
So if the city did come up with one of these 501cs, would, let's say if the Arts and Culture Commission, if we actually were able to kind of, with the help of obviously the artists, if we were to actually build an event, that money that goes into that particular city 501c do you think that it would just pertain to us, like saying like, hey, since we raised it, it should go to us? Or is that something that any kind of, commission would be able to pull funds from? Because if that's the case, I would also be interested in learning what kind of legal steps would we have to go through? As Mr. Hodge was saying, what kind of legal steps would you have to go through? Would they be realistic? Would they be like attainable? Or are they super far out of our reach that it's just impossible? That way we can actually keep, essentially what this community, what this commission comes up with, as opposed to someone else kind of, taking it.
Yeah.
I don't know who can field that question. Oh, Mr. Garcia.
sorry about that. So yeah, I would think the 501c would function in such a way that when funds are raised for specific purposes, they can be put towards specific purposes. And so it would almost function a lot like a structure I set up in the city of Pico Rivera. So even though money comes in for general fund purposes, property tax revenue, sales tax revenue, as long as it's coded for specific functions. So we wanted to create an economic development stabilization fund. That's what we were calling it. So we were using an old economic development administration grant from the federal government that required these developers to pay back some of those grant funds to the city. So we had like $1 million sitting there, and we reinvested that $1 million 20 years later into a tenant improvement project within a shopping center. But what we wanted to do was see, okay, as sales tax increases from new business activity within that shopping center and the property tax revenue increases, how can we divert some of that general fund money to put and reinvest into other shopping centers? And I would think if a similar fundraising effort were undertaken by let's say we are able to create a 501c3 for the city, and it undertakes some fundraising for art projects, I don't see why we couldn't create a separate account that would go for, all sorts of different art projects, depending on how that money's being brought in. Because if the money's brought in for a specific purpose, it needs to be spent for a specific purpose. So I think, does that make sense, Brian?
Yes, no, that's exactly right. I didn't want to jump in there and give that answer because it really is, it's about how it is set up. It's how, staff and the commission come together and decide, that they want this, how they want this program to run. So from the legal standpoint, then it gets set up to make sure that, if you're bringing in funds for a particular purpose, that it will be restricted to using those funds for that purpose. But in terms of, what that purpose is, how you want to set it up, I mean, those are conversations for staff to decide how, best to put forward a program like this, and then, ultimately for the approval of the city manager and city council if necessary.
Go ahead, Commissioner Russell. And then I
Yes.
saw Commissioner Fernandez.
I have a question for Mike and then maybe also one for Ryan. First question is, in your experience working in various cities, what is an approximate arts and culture budget? And how does that compare to the 175,000 that it looked like on the first slide that was presented in the presentation? That Santa Ana has allocated
Yeah.
for arts and culture.
I don't know the answer to that. I really don't. I imagine LA, San Diego, San Francisco have much bigger budgets and coffers that they've, put towards their arts districts. And I know with Santa Ana, we did a lot through like public infrastructure projects. And what I mean by that is, I think we put some of our money towards the fountain, the one in the 2nd Street area, in between Sycamore and Broadway. We did little things like that where, they were coming in from redevelopment funds. I think a lot of our initial funds were coming in from redevelopment activities in the downtown and Central City redevelopment project area. But I honestly don't know how other cities. I don't. These are the things I'd like to learn more about. So
I've heard numbers thrown around like Laguna Beach, which obviously has much more revenue to work with, but is not doesn't have a larger necessarily. Let's say downtown, for instance, has I think like 6 times the budget that we have. My next question though is that 175, we just swooped right past it, and I'm just curious. It seems like all of that money is going to one entity, and I'm curious, Ryan, if you can clarify, what that contract or that arrangement is, and how flexible is it?
I'm sorry, I think I missed a part of that. Which agreement are you referring to?
On slide 1 of Commissioner Vu's presentation, it looked like there was 175 in the annual reoccurring budget for Bowers Museum.
Okay.
And so it basically consumes our entire arts and culture budget. And I'm curious if you can just sort of clarify that relationship. Is it flexible in any way?
I apologize. I'm going to have to defer to Tram on that one. I don't have the specifics of that agreement. I don't believe we have something that was recently put in place with them. So that might be an older agreement. Might have to dig further into that. I'm not sure, unless Tram, you have some more information about the Bowers setup.
The Bowers is definitely not, the contract is not with the Arts and Culture Office. So I don't have all the details on that either, but I think I can probably send you something later. I'm sure it's all public records somewhere, but it's not with our office. So it's actually not infringing on our budget per se. That 175, I don't know if you can clarify, Commissioner or Vice Chair Vu, but it's not from our budget.
I actually have the document in front of me. And it is 1.6 million, which 1.4 million, 1.47 is going to Bowers Museum. And obviously this is from 216. And 175 is going to us. And to add a little bit to what Deborah was saying, Commissioner Russell was saying, a city like San Antonio has a $9.3 million budget that they're getting from tenant occupancy taxes. And that's, I mean, they have a per capita very similar to us, and their city occupant tax rate is much less than ours. I think more importantly, we finding out what that contract is more or less if the arts and culture and the economic engine in the discussion is how can we bring forth that, then maybe not necessarily seeing what the flexibility of that contract is, but more or less what the contribution for that investment has actually occurred to for the last 6 years, and maybe seeing if there is value in that or possibility for renegotiation or maybe collaboration to heighten some things that we might be missing on here that maybe we just haven't asked.
I concur.
Yeah.
I'm very interested to know a lot more, everything we could possibly know about that.
Thank you. That's a great issue to surface. Appreciate that. And it looks like Vice Chair Vu, did you have a comment or wanted to speak?
I just wanted to clarify the original statement on the slide. It says that currently the city's arts budget, apart from the annual budget item for Bowers Museum, is approximately $175,000. That was 5 years ago. That was it. So thank you, Commissioner Fernandez, for providing me more detail.
I did want to add to maybe a comment to Mike. Is there two questions? What is the expected? What could be an expected time frame to organize such a 501c? Is it a quarter? Is it 2 quarters? A year? 10 years? From your experience, and 2, what from your experience as well, it seems like you have the experience within development city and different facets of it. What is your opinion if we start to consider creative taxing? I saw that there's some occupancy taxing, so taxing if your building's empty, nobody's using it, which we've got plenty, especially if you're in downtown. Your building's just going up in valuation while everybody does the work, and then you don't do nothing and don't give anything back to the city. That seems like an issue, if I had to point one out. So with that example, how big of a lift is it to go down the path of creative taxation and finding these little 1%, 2% pockets along the way, once we have like a formed or a plan to start kind of putting those monies or however the flow might be? What is the lift difficulty that you see when working with our commissioners to say, hey, we want 2% of that and 2% of this and 2% of that? Is that something feasible, or is that something that we might need to think like our predecessors and say, hey, let's look at a 5-year plan to try to get this going?
I think a 5-year plan is something that helps direct a lot of these type of projects. Ultimately, it would be the city council that would be making these type of decisions. Assessing fees on property owners based on, they're sitting there underutilized, maybe vacant. That's been done in different cities, but then directing that revenue for specific purposes, that's where I don't know where Prop 218 comes into play, or Proposition 218 kind of governs how cities can tax different private entities, and when those have to go to a vote of the people, and what type of vote needs to be obtained, whether it's going to be put towards a specific purpose. When I heard about San Antonio that they were using some of their transient I think it was a transient occupancy tax, so their hotel visitor tax revenue,
9%.
they probably had to include that within let's say they went from 10% TOT room, that would be charged on top of a room fee, to maybe 12%. When they take that back to the voters, that's got to be included in that measure, that ballot measure. And there's nothing that would prevent the city from from doing that. But this is where it gets a little out of my realm. What requires, a vote of the people and what requires a vote of our city council. A vote of the city council. So let's say some ideas are put forward from the Arts and Culture Commission here that you want to take to city council for their consideration and their direction. Things can move a little quicker that way, I would think, than, a specific fee or tax that needs to be voted on. As far as a 501c3, the creation of that, I would imagine it's not going to be quick. It's something that over a few months will be considered and debated with regards to, the merits of creating one by the city council. So I would see like maybe 4 to 6 months for that to be something that our legal counsel and our city council are looking at that and whether they want to create it. And then there's probably going to be another 6 months to figure out how it's going to function, create an oversight structure. So I don't think it would be anything quick, this 501c3. And right now, staff is strictly looking at, so all the directors within the city are thinking about what type of fundraising activities and what benefits would derive from the creation of a 501c3. But there's nothing precluding the city council from making decisions on how they want to spend their general fund revenue, whether it's property tax or sales tax. It would just be directing it through the budget process. And we're going to start our mid-year budget pretty soon and then begin the process for next year's 2023-24 budget process probably in January. So.
Thank you. Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Hernan.
Let me say one more thing. There may be some community development block grant funds, and there are other sources of funding out there that the city may have that may be able to be put towards different initiatives. These are the type of things I'm going to be exploring as well. So,
my follow-up was under. It seems like, I guess from the commission's viewpoint, just kind of throw it out there, seems that maybe our best bet then is to, as we in tandem kind of explore these options, would be to focus on grant writing, because that would provide us the quickest source of funds, maybe for next year, to start to secure something for next year to explore a little bit outside of just kind of, figuring out where we can go throughout the plan. And then another maybe follow-up question, maybe just kind of a general 10,000 foot view question is when, and maybe this is what the surveys that we're doing, maybe that's the power that brings, but when do we see as a commission that I guess I like to think of extremes, right? And if we spend 20 years without funding the arts and culture department, something bad will happen, right? Like, it's just bound. If you don't spend on your culture, it's just bound to not, something's gonna break, something's gonna get lost, something's not gonna work. What is that measure stick that we can say, hey, like we've been out of funding for 5 years, 10 years, like where do we kind of start to have some sort of opportunity to go back to our commissions and say, hey, the arts and culture, it's an important piece of what we're doing. Like, when do we kind of look at that and say, like, maybe like how they say applying pressure to the wound, right? Like right now we're just kind of dealing with and running with the punches. Oh, there's no funding. Like we'll keep going because there's lots of things to do, but just maybe this is too far of a question out for the future. How does the commission see when, like, hey, 175,000 is not going to be enough. It's just not going to be enough. And when we start to kind of become a little bit more diligent with our commissioners, like when does everybody kind of see that view? I mean, I would think about it, we have $0 now, so maybe it's something we should be thinking about now, but there's obviously things that we can do now. But when do we all see that being an issue, not having funding and being such an integral piece of the city that we all kind of see?
I'd like to offer that it's an issue now.
Yeah.
Right. So to that end, I appreciate those clarifying questions. I had several of the same. But I have been talking with Tram about how the commission can get on a regular presentation cycle in front of the city council. So we have plans to do that at the beginning of the year so that we can show the magnitude of the work that we're doing, speak to the issues about the Arts and Culture Master Plan, and appeal to support in general funding. Because yes, it takes up time. It takes a long time to set up a 501c3. It takes time to do all of these things. What can we do in the now, which is why, to your point, we're trying to capture the economic data, and also tie into the fact that we are in the U.S. creative economy capital. So we need to be funding that. And what was pointed out in the plan is around the kids and the access of building the pipelines in our own communities. And the school district has a robust strategic arts plan that is alive and well. And the school district is investing in the arts for our students. And I would love to see the city match that in creating an economic pipeline for our students to at least have internships and externships and experiences in the community that's a viable way for them to realize, oh, we can access these jobs, because currently they're coming from outside of California to take those jobs, right? So I think that's really important for us to be able to go pitch to the city council in the meantime and continue to have this conversation. Moving forward, though, is there any other initiatives we want to put on the discussion for what we're addressing this year? Are we adding, we're going to put the registry on hold until we get funding? Is that what I'm hearing? Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Russell.
I would just emphasize the community-wide access and engagement goal, in part because we've seen such strong engagement and appreciation and vibrancy from having movie nights and music and festivals in our parks. And while Santa Ana has, I think the city has provided a lot of grants to enable those to take place. Possibly the way we look at this until we have more secure funding is that we work with Parks and Rec to incentivize having those festivals and events in our city's parks by reducing fees, et cetera. Because many of these promoters and these organizers are going to have the event regardless. But if we can be more attractive by reducing those fees within our city, that enables it to happen and it brings the economic vitality. If we don't do so, they will very likely go to other cities, as we've seen some. I think of like the Patchwork Festival, which used to be, was sort of based and evolved here in Santa Ana. And for whatever complex reasons, has migrated over to Tustin, and it looks like it's going to be living there from now on. And so we lose that, and we won't get the funding. The city wouldn't, the Parks and Rec Department wouldn't get the funding either way, right? But this way we sort of have an opportunity for surrounding businesses in the city itself to generate additional income, in addition to helping to foster stronger ties with our community.
Excellent points. I feel like it was very timely to have our special guest here, Mr. Garcia, to be able to discuss that and have his lens on that as we move forward, because tonight we're not taking any action on these recommendations, right? It was just put forward. Is it something that we're going to vote on in the future, or what is the next step? Sorry, I need some guidance, Tram, on that.
I think we can explore all of these recommendations and the pros and cons of them, what it would take to implement them, and that sort of thing. So perhaps we can visit, them in more depth in future meetings. We compile it, all the ones that were mentioned tonight, and we can go through it next meeting.
Then
Mike?
I had a comment as well, as a former city commissioner, as a former city council member, as a resident and voter. you all were appointed by a council member. You all have a lot of voice. I would say go and talk to your appointed, to your elected official and talk to them about it. And we can explore maybe if the city council chooses a joint city council arts and culture commission meeting. So you can have an open session discussion about a lot of this. I would encourage you, I frequently met with my planning commissioner, my redevelopment commissioner, my arts and culture commissioner, my youth commissioner, and I'd ask them, what do you guys want to take on? What do you see that we're not doing? What are your thoughts? And I don't know that the other city council members did, but all of the people I appointed that I had as appointed officials for the city, when I was a council member, they were people that were, very involved within their respective fields. They were not just political appointees. They were professionals, and I took their advice at heart. And you guys are very involved. I think it would be great for you to talk to your council member, text them, whatever you think would work, and let them know that you got some ideas, and we'd love for them to act upon them. So, because that's how I always see it. Like, get their interest in it and get them to help create policy or direction for us as staff. So whether it's budget policy, program creation, it's always the easiest way when it's going through the elected officials, I say.
Agreed. I know I've met with my council member, and I think many of us have and continue to have those ongoing dialogues to bring awareness. And it's also a collective audience with the whole, right? So, because those individual conversations go so far. So thank you for that recommendation. I appreciate that a lot. Any other comments? Yes, Commissioner Russell.
Forgive me for not finding the exact recommendation number, but I think it was in the youth goal, there was an item about a mentorship program, or at least sort of helping to create stronger networks between our existing artists and our emerging artists. And I can attest firsthand, when I was a part of the Santa Ana Artists Mural Coalition, or the Coalition of Muralists, I saw that happen in action, while they were art making, and it was very powerful. And again, I imagine there might be some slight cost, but I think that would be another way to instill that until stronger sources of funding are identified and secured, that we are still sort of creating pipelines or creating, awareness. And that might be about how do you secure funding? How do you promote yourself? How do you, apply for grants and so forth, et cetera.
Oh, thank you for pointing that. I wanted to mention that while that was the mural cataloging, I think is really important. And I want to make sure that those murals that are within the school district are included as well. It's important to note that we actually are investing from the school district lens into mural restoration as well. So, and I think that's part of the whole city, right? And I know we mentioned and spoke a lot about the arts district, but also we're representing the arts throughout the entire city. So thinking about how we engage our community at large, knowing that not everybody wants to come or does come to the downtown for the arts district. So what are those other things that we do to support in the inclusive things that were mentioned in Vice Chair Vu's presentation for inclusive things. So thank you. I think this was a beautiful, robust conversation. I'd like to move forward to the next item on the agenda of staff. Do you have any comments that you wish to share with the commission?
Yes, I'd like to, thank you, Chair McNair. I'd like to update everyone on the sponsorship funding and how everybody, and what were all the different events for that. So let me get this ready. But we had a great, oops, sorry. Gotta share my screen. But we had a great turnout for the money that you all allocated. It was the first time, just to catch up Mike on this. It was the first time ever that the Arts and Culture Commission, the commissioners were able to have an active hand in selecting recipients for the first ever sponsorship funding from City Council. So City Council allocated $100,000 to Arts and Culture commissioners to distribute to worthy projects. And there were 31 that were selected. I think out of about 70-ish or so. I don't have that number right now. But yeah, so it was great. I'm gonna share my screen now. And so that they were supposed to have, it was done in January 20 of this year. And all the events needed to have happened by the end of June for that fiscal year, basically last fiscal year. So I'm going to start with Ward 1. All the wards, except for Ward 2, because it has a lot more, industrial sites and whatnot. So all the wards basically were able to be funded. So the first one, and this is not in any particular order, but this is Ward 1, is the 4th Annual Libromobile Literary Arts Festival, presented by the grantee was Libromobile, and they received $7,800. This was a one-day event at the Heritage Museum. Next one is Let's Move as One. The recipient is Tupua Productions. They received $4,125. This was also a one-day event. Oops, sorry. And the final one in Ward 1 is Expo Moorlands USA. The recipient is Expo Moorlands Committee, and they received $4,500 for this one-day event. In Ward 3, Japanese Cherry Blossom Festival. The recipient is Bowers Museum. They received $4,500 for this one-day event. And all of these are free to the community, free and open to the public. Next one is Galleria of Imaginations Community Art Classes and Exhibitions. The recipient is Uplifting Soul Art Events. They received $1,284. And this was a, I believe they did it let me see, I did it about, I think 3 or 4 months. And at the Santa Ana, the Main Place Mall. This one is Art in the Park. The recipient is Floral Park Neighborhood Association. They received $2,600. Unfortunately, Commissioner Katz is not here today. He actually applied for this before he became a commissioner. And so this was a one-day event in Floral Park. Well, I think he had art walks every month. It's called Art in the Park. And he was able to purchase these chairs, these lawn chairs, and then commissioned artists to paint them. And then folks bid on them. And money would go back directly to the artists. Next one is the 20th annual picnic at Santa Ana Zoo. The recipient is Grupo de Autismo Angeles OC. The amount was $1,284, and this was a one-day event at the Santa Ana Zoo. The next one is Smart Walk. Recipient is Media Arts Santa Ana. The amount is $1,895, and it was a one-day event at the OC Musicians Union. The next one is Santa Ana Latin Jazz Concert. Recipient is OC Children's Therapeutic Arts Center, or OCTAC, as some of you may know. The amount is $6,000, and it was a one-day event at in the Art Promenade on 2nd Street. And they brought in prominent Latin jazz artists to perform with students from OCTAC. So it was a really wonderful event. Okay, Ward 4. First one is Chalk Walk. Recipients, the Wilshire Square Neighborhood Association, and they received $177. And this was a one-day event. Next one is Legacy Art Workshop and Gallery for Senior Adults. The recipient is Andres Felipe Rivera. The amount he received is $1,614. And this was, he did it for one day for 2 months. Next one is the first annual concert at the Pacific. Recipient is Pacific Park Neighborhood Association. They received $3,700. $50, and it was a one-day event at the Pacific Park. Ward 5. Let me know if I'm going too fast, if you want me to slow down so you can look at some more of the images. This one is the Robert Williams exhibition at the OC Center for Contemporary Arts, or OCA, as some of you may know. The amount is $3,300. It was an exhibition of the retrospective of the artist Robert Williams. Oops. Next one is Dia del Niño, Children's Day Festival and Celebration. Recipient is Willard Neighborhood Association. The amount is $1,385 for a one-day event at St. Peter Lutheran Church. Next one is La Familia. It is an outdoor gallery. The recipient is Avant Garden Gallery, who received $672 for this. And it was a one-day event. Next one is Art and Mental Health Awareness Exhibition. The recipient is Art Spread, who received $428. And this was a one-day event at Chapter 1. Next one is Cambios. Recipient is the artist Federico Medina, who received $3,125. This was an exhibition in a gallery in downtown Santa Ana, and it was a one-day event. The next one is Cara a Cara, or Face to Face. The recipient is the artist Roger Reyes, who received $4,800. And this was a one-day event during Art Walk. This next one is Open Stage. Recipient is B&B Music Studio, who received $5,260. This was a monthly event from January to June, I believe. And this was outdoors at the Calle Cuatro. Strolling Mariachi in downtown Santa Ana. The recipient is Mascoro Productions, who received $5,625. This was a weekly event. They would stroll around playing mariachi music every week in downtown Santa Ana. Next one is Boca de Oro Festival of 2022. The recipient is Santa Ana Business Council. The amount is $4,100. And this was a weekend event in around downtown Santa Ana in various locations, as you can see. And finally, Ward 6. First one is Classics on French Street. The recipient is the Frida Cinema. They received $8,543, and he showed monthly screenings of classics. Next one is Public Art Workshop. The recipient is OC Fine Art Studio. He received $1,161, and this was a weekly gathering of teaching art and showing public art. Next one is the Art of Creating Wildlife Murals. The recipient is artist Jonathan Martinez, who received $3,375, and this was a one-day event. Next one is a Mural Slam. The recipient is the Blue Lot, who received $1,406, and this was a one-day event in the Blue Lot near downtown Santa Ana. And the next one is the 11th International Women's Day Festival. The recipient is Conscious Culture Collective, who received $4,750, and this is a one-day event in downtown. And next one is La Cuatro Fest. Recipient is Iron Lion Media, who received $4,444 for this one-day event. Next one is the Green Parrots of Santa Ana Festival. The recipient is artist Marina Aguilera, who received $1,804, and this was a one-day event. And finally, Rock the Block Santa Ana. The recipient is School of Rock, who received $880 for this one-day event at the 4th Street Market. And these are two additional events that happened who did not submit any photos. First one being Santa Anita Dia de los Niños event. Recipient is Santa Anita Neighborhood Association, who received $3,750. They're part of Ward 1. And the final one is Música en Movimiento. Recipient is El Centro Cultural de Mexico, who received $1,663 and part of Ward 5. So any questions? Or comments?
I have a comment, I just want to mention, I see it's, you can't even know. I'd be curious to know, like how many people showed up to kind of each one of these events, because as we see like the different monies that were given, I'm just curious, if we're funding, $4,000 or $5,000 for an event that put up, and then another one,
Oh no, you're breaking up at the end there, but I think I get your gist. Yeah, we didn't, because this was sponsorship money, so we didn't really have any criteria that they had to provide anything. I tried to attend many of them. Yeah, so I mean, we'd have to go back and ask each of them how many people came and all of that. But yeah, I understand. We don't know what was the result of all this funding that we give, and it's something to keep in mind if we were to do this again. The most I could do is ask of them is to submit images.
Do you think that any of these were, did we encourage all these folks to collect surveys, or if they were happening within the window of releasing that?
I think this happened before.
Okay.
Yeah, it happened right before, unfortunately.
Yeah, that would have been such good data to have.
Oh, I know.
Well, it's beautiful to see the breadth of things that are happening, and thank you to this commission for helping to so thoughtfully allocate that funding and supporting the artists in our community. We really appreciate that. Are there any questions for staff? Oh, did you want to say something, Mike?
I was very impressed with that list of projects there. I was, I've been telling people, the people have been saying, where have you been, Mike? I work up in LA. I'm up in LA like for the last 16 years. And when I am in town, I was coaching and reffing and doing family stuff and kid stuff. And when I was looking at all of this, I was like so proud, so happy. The My City was putting money towards these type of projects. I can't tell you how it made me feel.
Thank you. That means a lot. Thank you so much. On behalf of all the commission, we appreciate your words. Go ahead, Brian.
Hi, yeah, since we're on staff member comments, I just wanted to share real quick that this will actually be my last meeting serving as legal counsel for the commission. I'll be leaving the city before the next meeting. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank all of you. I've learned so much about the arts, being a small part of this commission here. And so, I am just, you want to express that, how great this commission is. And, as you could see by the meeting tonight, all of you just put so much hard work into it, and it really shows. And so, I wish you all the best moving forward, and just keep up the good work. This commission is a tremendous asset for the city. And so I will certainly miss it, but you will be in good hands moving forward. Thank you.
Ryan, well, thank you for sharing the good news. It's bittersweet. We wish you all the best as well. And thank you for all your support over all this time that you've been with us.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mike.
We were all, Ryan, we were all floored when we heard the news. We are happy you're going to Anaheim, so you're going to be next door. I have a lot of good friends there, from Councilmember Jose Moreno to Sergio and Andy in housing. I mean, I'm glad you're in just north of Santa Ana. We'll have to find ways that we can work together on maybe some projects where our cities have mutual interest. But all my staff, I can't tell you, throughout the day, people are, Mike, is it true Ryan's leaving? I'm like, yes, unfortunately. So we want to wish you well, and I know I barely got to know you, but I've heard nothing but great things from my colleagues here. So
Thank you, Mike. I do appreciate that. And yes, I will be close by. And so hopefully we will have some projects and collaboration where we will be continuing to work together. Absolutely.
Beautiful. All right. Does the commission have any comments they wish to share? Please keep your comments to within 3 minutes. And if you wish to speak a second time, let others speak before you speak again. Anyone who would like to take the floor? Go ahead, Commissioner Fernandez.
Just wanted to share an upcoming event that the group that I work closely with, the 1901 Project, the nonprofit, creative and arts nonprofit. We're doing an event at the Blue Lot. It is going to be a toy drive, but we wanted to kind of revamp the traditional toy drive and do it more of kind of like a resource fair so that the parents can come and get a toy and do something, and maybe for the more adult people can come in and have access to things. So a lot of our members are community members, attorneys, real estate agents. I'm bringing in aspects of Web3, financial education, blockchain. So we just wanted to introduce new topics to the community while giving toys away, while having kind of a small event. So just wanted to encourage everybody, if you'd like to participate, you would like to just come, bring your family. But I did want to put that on everybody's calendar early on. It'll be December 10th, and it will be a toy drive. And it's going to be a free community event that we'll be putting together with a few other nonprofits here in the city as well.
Thank you.
And we do this in collaboration with Jonathan Hernandez as well. So our commissioner for Ward 5 here in the Downtown Arts District.
Thank you. Any other comments? Go ahead, Commissioner Russell.
Well, I just wanted to, in terms of events, just remind everyone that the Frida Cinema, we got to see a little taste of their classics on French. They're back with the Halloween movie series. It's actually tonight, if you can make it out. And then there's one last one next Thursday night. And I say that because I've been going with my family, and every time we go, it gets bigger and the audience gets more diverse and more enthusiastic. People dress up, and it's really fun. And it's just a great use of activation of our parks, because otherwise that is a very quiet, dark place in the evenings. And so it's very exciting to see that. Art Walk is coming up. It's the big one. I think there's a bit of a lull over the summer as people are on vacation, et cetera. And so November 5th, Saturday, is not only Art Walk in the downtown area, but also it's Noche de Altares. There also is an interesting activation of an alleyway that I really encourage Mike that you to check out. We saw a picture of it. It's called Callejón del Beso. And there's a new mural that is very slowly being painted on a wall. But also it's really an interesting space where the city owns some parking spaces that I think are underutilized. And it could really be a very interesting creative space that I'd love to explore. And then two more, all the high schools are really in full throttle when it comes to arts events. I can't even keep track of how many things are happening between Santa Ana High School and OSEA, and where they have a festival, fall festival coming up, and OSHA. There's drama, there's choir performances, orchestra, and as I said, sort of fall festival activities. So I encourage you to look into your local schools and find out what they're doing. And then my last comment is, please, I think we all, if you haven't already been to the Orange County Museum of Art, the brand new museum, I highly encourage you to go. I was very impressed by some of the artwork they have within the building. I won't comment on the building, but while they are in Costa Mesa, they're just a smudge over on the Santa Ana line. I think they're going to give our area quite a bit of competition, because the museum itself is free for the next 10 years. They on the very first day I was there during the 24-hour opening, They had all kinds of family interactive workshops where we were making artworks together. And so they're really, we could lose people. We could lose art patrons to such a venue. And so we have to be competitive so we can keep those people here and those dollars here. So thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Vu.
Yes. I want to say, first of all, didn't get a chance to say, welcome, Mike. Really glad you're here. Really looking forward to all the ways we can collaborate, brainstorm ways to further revitalize the arts and culture in the city and really see it blossom into something really thriving as we continue to recover from the pandemic, both as people, community, and a place with an economy as well. I want to say also, congratulations and best of luck to Ryan. You have been immensely helpful in all of your legal advisement, and you will be a great asset to Anaheim soon. You will be very deeply missed. And my last comment, I just wanted to speak briefly on the Mid-Autumn Festival that was hosted at the beginning of October in Santa Ana. It was the first one that the city of Santa Ana threw. It was huge and bustling and way more vibrant than I thought it would have been in its first year. It was many hours long with so many performances, song, music, COVID resources. It was just so beautiful to see a Vietnamese event be thrown with such joy and vivacity, and also to bring in so many different kinds of community members too. I basically walked over to that park, and it was a beautiful walk and everyone was just having fun. I saw people of all ages, from small children to elders, walking with each other. It was just beautiful, and I really hope that we continue to be able to not only see events like this, co-host, co-sponsor, but also give them some funding to further incentivize these events to not only bring money to our city, but also just for our residents to be able to enjoy and to experience the beauty that is the arts and culture in the city.
Beautiful, thank you. Any other comments, commissioners? All right, then I'll just close it up by adding a few of my own comments. Thank you for mentioning all the amazing events. Like Deborah said, within the school district and within the city, there's never a dull moment. There's multiple things happening all the time. I wish I could clone myself to enjoy them all. The city of Santa Ana collaborated with the school district, and we had an amazing event at the zoo where we brought it was a college and career and resource fair. So colleges from all across the country were there. We had a local artist, Jonathan Martinez, come and show his mural in progress. We had lots of students performing and art on exhibit. It was a spectacular experience because we wanted to make sure that people know there's viable career paths in college, in the arts, right? College and career. And in addition to what's happening on November 5th, all the events that are going on, it's going to be a very busy day. There's another one that I wanted to point out that's also in the Blue Lot that day, which is the Justice for Victoria Barrios. There is a mural that was created by one of our former commissioners, Fernando Olivares, who did a mural of Victoria. And that's being put on to create awareness and community. There's going to be arts experiences, students performing, and resources provided. So that's happening also. It's a full day. You can schedule out with your whole family. And the last thing I wanted to point out was there is going to be a very special, most likely once in a lifetime, at least during my lifetime, event that's coming to Santa Ana. We've attracted the Airmen of Note, which is the U.S. premier jazz band that tours the entire world. And they were attracted to Santa Ana because of the robust arts and culture that happen here because the school district is very involved in the arts too. So we're hosting that at Santa Ana High School, which has the most seats, 1,500, right? We do have veterans in our community. We welcome, but it's free. This is free to everyone and anyone to have this experience of this premier music group. So I encourage everyone to come. Now, it does fall on to our next Arts and Culture Commission meeting. And so that the concert starts at 7:30. Look, at 7:15. If we ended now, we could have made it, right? But I'm putting it out there that perhaps we could host our meeting at Santa Ana High School. And then, because we've hosted Arts and Culture Commission meetings in our schools, it was Valley High School, and you only mentioned a couple of schools, but we have a lot of high schools, 6 comprehensive and 3 ed option schools. So there's lots of things going on even beyond what you mentioned, but perhaps we could host the meeting there. Then I could get everybody's seats at the event and we could do some civic engagement and perhaps encourage more of our community that's participating, coming to the concert to maybe attend a commission meeting. So that's my thought. If you're open to it, I'll work with Tram and we can try to figure that out.
I
Yeah.
love it.
Okay.
I might know a room.
Yes, fingers.
I figured you might. That's the connection. The last thing I want to mention too is to put it on your radar that on the upcoming November elections, there is Prop 28, which is arts funding for education. And it's supposed to be 1% of the state budget would go to the arts education. So I encourage you to check that out and consider that when you're making your vote in November. So those are my concluding comments. If there are no further comments, then I would say that this amazing meeting is officially adjourned. And again, thank you, Brian. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Tram and Bianca, for continuous support. And to all my fellow commissioners, I'm grateful for the work and passion that you bring to this group. So have a great night and we'll see you next month.
Good night, everyone.
Everyone. Good
Bye,
night.
everybody.